Hello everyone, welcome back to the Orange Juice Theory podcast. Today we're going to go into how to manifest your desired reality even with fear and doubt. There are so many of you here who want to manifest your desired reality, which is absolutely amazing. And my name is Kate. If you're new here, I am a six-figure entrepreneur. I've built 2 six-figure businesses from my horseship with no money. And I literally had nothing else, only my horse shed and Instagram Live. And I showed up every single day for 2 years and I ended up living my dream life at the other side of it. But what a lot of people see from the outside is all the physical action that I took to get to where I am. But no one actually saw the mental and spiritual side that was in alignment, that literally quantum leaped me into a whole new paradigm and a whole new timeline in such a quick space of time. So I literally went from €0 broke in the middle of nowhere in a tiny village in the south of Ireland to building a 6-figure business in under 2 years, even though I failed business in school. And that does not come, my friends, from physically just doing. You need to have a higher faith. You need to have a higher power and understand the laws of the universe in order to get the thing that it is that you want. And the paradox of manifesting is that manifesting has nothing got to do with doing, and it has everything got to do with being. And where so many people go wrong is they come into videos like this or podcasts like this and they're like, what do I need to do in order to manifest my desired reality? And that is the exact reason why you don't have the thing, because you already have what it is that you want. You cannot have something that you already have within you. Let's get into it. We exist on 3 planes of existence: the mental, the spiritual, and the physical. The lowest vibrational state that we can be in of consciousness is the physical. So that's the 3D world that we live in on a day-to-day basis. The highest vibrational state that we can be in is the spiritual, which is nowhere, no place, no time, no thing. And the second highest vibrational state that we can exist in is the mental, visualization, meditation, etc. Too often, people take all the action in the world that they want to take towards their desired state, but their mental and spiritual state is broken. For example, I am doing, Kate, but I'm not getting anywhere in business. I am taking all the action in the world. I'm doing all the lead generation. I'm posting all the content. I am doing all the outreach. I am doing as much as I possibly can to make money, and I can't make it, or I'm bottlenecked. And the reason why is because mentally and spiritually, you're out of alignment. If you're someone who is in a job that you do not feel aligned in, and mentally you can get out of that job, like you're like, I can do this, I can have a different life for myself, I can build a business, I can go after my goals and dreams, and you know that mentally, but spiritually you feel anxious, you feel doubt, you feel so much overwhelmed because of the job that you're in, because it has so much misalignment, like you're so misaligned. That will constantly be the thing that stops you from taking action, or you're inconsistent in your physical action. I know I said that action is the lowest vibrational state, and it is. It doesn't mean that you don't take it. All of these 3 need to work in alignment for you to stand in your desired reality, because you have all the answers within you, and once you align with all of those within, you will see them without. Oftentimes people can't understand this and they don't know what I mean by getting all of these 3 planes aligned. And the way I like to describe it is, when you go to brush your teeth, you don't just go and brush your teeth. You think it first in your mind. You feel discomfort in your teeth, and then you have a thought because you feel discomfort. You have a thought that says, I need to brush my teeth, and then you get up and brush your teeth. When you're hungry, you feel hungry first, and then mentally you have a thought where you're like, I feel hungry, and then you take physical action to eat. So if you think it first in your mind and you feel it in your soul, which is spiritually. If someone has a poor mental state where they're always negative or they're always talking to themselves poorly or they're always complaining or victimizing, we all know certain people who have a victim mentality, who are always complaining, there's something wrong with the weather, then the fuel prices are going up, there's no jobs in Ireland, the rent is through the roof, it's impossible to pay for our rent, it's impossible to keep up with the economy, blah, 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 blah. These are all stories and self-fulfilling prophecies that certain people say to make themselves feel better about themselves. Because if we look back, there have been times where there was economic crises, where there was a recession, and there's some people who absolutely thrived during those times. The only truths that exist in reality are what our subconscious mind accepts to be true. If I accepted that the only way I could be successful was going to college, getting a degree, becoming a teacher, and paying into a pension and getting a mortgage and having kids and getting married and buying a house and then I die. If I accepted that because that was what success was defined as in my reality in Ireland, that is where I would be if I accepted that as truth. But I challenged it because I did not feel aligned in that. I was going into my job every single day on autopilot thinking, is this what I have to do in order to be successful? And I had cognitive dissonance because I knew deep in my soul, that I wanted to be a millionaire from a very young age, because I grew up in a household that was extremely low income and there was a lot of financial pressure on our house. And I just knew that that's what I didn't want. I didn't know how I was going to become a millionaire. I just knew that that's what I wanted. I decided that from a very young age. And so that was planted in my subconscious mind from a very young age. I didn't know any teachers who were millionaires. So there was this constant over and back of feeling misaligned in my job, spiritually and mentally hating it, and then dragging myself to work and constantly thinking, is this my life? And I'm only 19 years old. I cannot live this way. And because I saw my parents struggle their whole lives to make money, I just knew that I was taking the exact same path that they took. And I was like, I could not do that. I couldn't live a life of inauthenticity. I'm not saying that my mom and dad lived a life of inauthenticity. Just for me personally, I could not live a life where I didn't like my job. I hated waking up every day going into my job. I accepted this to be true. I just decided different. I was like, no, I am not having this for my life. And so because I decided different and I challenged all of those beliefs that were placed upon us by society, I now have a different life. I live a completely different life. I built 2 six-figure businesses from my horse shed with no money because I chose to not accept what society believed was true for success. And I decided to write my own. I just questioned it all. I said, why not? Why can't I do it? Said who? So remember this. Take this down and tattoo it to the inside of your brain. The only truths we see in reality, in the physical, which is the lowest vibrational state, is what our subconscious mind accepts to be true. That's it. You can challenge those thoughts and beliefs. If you want different, you're going to have to challenge them. It's going to be uncomfortable because it's change and it's going from all you know to something different. But that's why we're here, to live a life of authenticity, to step into our light, to step into our desired reality. That comes at a cost. Everything has a cost. So like I said, if you're broken and you're misaligned, you are going to think negative, then you're going to feel horrendous, and then you're going to still take action, and the result is going to be burnout because you're misaligned. You're not in your purpose. That's why there's so many teachers personally that I know that are burned out, and a lot of people who burn out is because you're not aligned in what it is that you want to do. This is what alignment looks like. Mentally, you say, I figure things out. I get things done. I figure it out. I know what I want. Yeah? Spiritually, you act from calm and presence, not chaos. And physically, you just take action, but it's not from desperation, because Desperation repels. When you chase, you're creating a larger space from where you are and where you want to be. Anytime you need something, you will never have it. As long as you want to chase, you're creating a larger space between you and your desired reality, because it's misalignment. It's a lack energy. It's kind of like guys that get onto you and they're chasing you. You're literally running a million miles. It's like chasing a butterfly. You'll never catch it. But if you sit still, it'll probably come and land on your shoulder. It's the exact same thing. So you can't think your way out if your mind is unstable. You can't feel your way out of things if you are misaligned and you feel horrendous. And you can't act your way out if the two of these are not in line. You will just burn out. So what do? You need to understand that you are living in a frequency that is keeping you on a hamster wheel. And in order to change your state and in order to step into your desired reality, you need to get onto a different hamster wheel. You need to change your frequency. And the best part about this is it all just comes from a decision. It literally happens in an instant. So your frequency is made up of your beliefs, your emotional conviction, your perception, your self-concept, concept of self, your emotionally charged thoughts, your focus, your reactions and emotional patterns, and your expectations. And so your reality that you're living in right now is what you have decided for yourself. So your world that you are literally living in right now is nothing more than yourself pushed out. So it's nothing more than the beliefs that you hold, the emotional conviction you have towards things, your concept of yourself, how you view yourself, your emotionally charged thoughts, your focus and where your attention is going, your reactions and how you react to certain situations and emotional patterns, and your expectations. So let's take me, for example. When I was a teacher, I had the beliefs that I had to be a teacher in order to be successful, in order to have a secure income, in order to have a lot of money, in order to have a house, and to follow the path that was deemed successful in my society in Ireland. The emotional conviction I had channeled towards this was so large that I couldn't see anything else outside of that reality. Why? Because from a very young age, we were wired to think that that was success. And this is not to shit on other people. This is not to shit on our parents, on our school teachers. It is an absolute privilege that I got to go to college. My mom and dad didn't get that. It is an absolute privilege that I got educated. I feel privileged for all of this because they were doing the best they could with what they knew to give us a better life. And I just feel so grateful that I got a grant to be able to go to college because I couldn't afford it. And I was blessed. So they did the best that they could based upon their beliefs, emotional conviction, self-concept, emotionally charged thoughts, focus, emotional patterns and expectations, because they didn't get that. But what I'm saying here is the frequency that I held when I was a teacher, and the reason why I was so convinced that this was the way to success was because that was what I grew up in. That is all I knew. It's kind of like when people grow up in disadvantaged areas and they're exposed to drugs and to crime, and they see that there's a lot of money being made doing that. They genuinely believe that that's their path and they belong in this group of people. And when you belong in a group of people, you feel connected to that group of people and you don't want to be outside the crowd. We are not born as human beings through evolution to be outside of the crowd. Otherwise, it means that we die, quite literally, in ancient times. Back in evolution. If we were left outside the crowd, we'd die. And so our brains are wired in that way. They're wired for survival, not for success. And so if you do anything that's outside of what your path is deemed to be or what you're emotionally convicted to believe, then you're going to die. That's what your brain is telling you. Your perception and self-concept. How do other people see you now? So I was becoming a teacher, and if you were becoming a teacher, especially in Ireland, it was deemed prestigious. And so, oh, she's a teacher now, isn't that fabulous? And she'll probably go on to be a principal. And that was told to me. That story was told to me. And that fed my ego. It fed my ego because I kept getting these dopamine hits because I was doing teaching. It was like, oh, but I'm going to be a teacher. And that means success. And aren't you brilliant that you got into teaching? And you're so smart. So I was constantly getting rewarded for this positively, and that's what our egos love. And that's why it was so difficult for me to step out because, oh, we feel like we belong. We feel that feeling of belonging, and that's hard to step out of because that is rooted into us. It's rooted into the very fabrics of our beings. Emotionally charged thoughts, quite similar to emotional conviction. When you have so much emotionally charged thoughts towards your desired reality or what you deem to be successful or what was wired into you from a young age, because remember, we operate on what our subconscious brain believes to be true, which is 90% of our day is operated from our subconscious brain, not our conscious brain. So our conscious brain is what's working on a day-to-day basis in the 3D reality in this world, but our subconscious brain, 90% of our actions come from our subconscious. So that's literally what's wired into us from a very young age. And automatically we start doing all these things. Automatically we go to school. Automatically we go to college. Automatically we get a degree. Automatically we become teachers. Automatically we do all these things automatically because it's wired into our subconscious. At least that was the case for me growing up in Ireland. And so emotion is energy in motion. And when there's a lot of energy in motion and there's a lot of focus on the energy in motion, that is what will come into fruition. Because remember the mental and spiritual, if you can think a thought mentally and there's feeling from the spiritual, that's energy in motion. So when that's emotionally charged, it's the highest leveraged thing that you can do and focus on. And the more you focus on that, it will have to, by law, come into the physical. So think about it. If you are emotionally charged towards this being the thing that means success, for me, it was becoming a teacher, and you're so emotionally charged towards that thing, of course you're going to see it in your physical reality because it's all you're focusing on. If all you're focusing on is all the things going wrong in your life, you're going to have energy, emotion, and emotionally charged thoughts towards all the things that are going wrong. And if you hold beliefs, emotional convictions, self-concept, emotionally charged thoughts, and you focus on it and you keep reacting to what's going on in the physical, you're going to expect it. And there's expectation bias. And then there's also something called the law of assumption from Neville Goddard. And if you assume all those things to be true, that is what you will see in your reality. It has to, by law, happen. It's like when good things happen to bad people. When bad people do bad acts, but they don't get punished for it, they only get good from it. Like people who demand war on other countries and then they're getting all the reward for it, even though they're a bad person. They feel good. They have good beliefs, good emotional conviction, good self-concept, good emotionally charged thoughts. It's all positive. Everything is positive. And they genuinely feel that way towards doing the bad act. The universe doesn't care if you're a good or bad person. It doesn't care. It rains on everyone. The sun shines on everyone, whether they're good or bad. Rain rains on everyone, whether you're good or bad. The universe does not care whether you're a good or a bad person. Once you have the frequency of someone who believes you're doing good and you believe all these things to be good, that's what you'll get back. You'll get rewarded with that. So as a teacher, I held beliefs that I had to be a teacher to be successful. I had emotional conviction towards it. My concept of self was that I would be perceived by my peers and by everyone around me that I would be good enough now because I'm a teacher. I had emotionally charged thoughts. All my focus was going on that. Reactions and emotional patterns are things that can consistently happen. So if you are always reacting to the physical, so things that are going on in your physical reality, you are constantly reacting to an effect. So it's like you can't change an effect with an effect. So how I can explain this is if you keep doing the same thing, you'll keep getting what you've always got. Until you change mentally and spiritually, you will just keep getting the same things as long as you keep reacting instead of responding. And then expectation is, if you expect the worst, that's what you're going to get. If you expect the best case scenario and you have it spiritually and mentally, and you have all the frequency of the beliefs, the emotional conviction, the self-concept, the emotionally charged thoughts, the focus, the emotional patterns, and the expectations, it will by law come into your reality. And the best evidence I have of this is myself. I built 2 six-figure businesses from my horse shed with no money, and I failed business in school. I changed my state. I changed my state of being, my frequency. So when you think of it like this, state is your mental and spiritual of being. You guys have everything that it is that you need right now to live and exist in your desired reality. It all exists within you. And the moment you understand that and that clicks in your brain, that's when everything will come to you, because it's already all within you mentally and spiritually. And once you decide that for yourself, mentally and spiritually, it has to by law come into your physical. And I'm going to show myself as a tangible example. I was in the middle of nowhere in a horse shed in a tiny village in rural Ireland with all the old frequency of being a teacher. But then I decided I wanted to change that. Decision. The universe only responds to clarity and decision. It doesn't respond to maybes or, oh, I think I'll have a plan B. It doesn't respond to that. You have to decide who it is that you want to be, and you have to have the emotional conviction towards it. I decided at 12 years old I was going to be a millionaire. That was something that was not being negotiated. And so I truly believe, because I decided that at 12 years old, that was the reason for me to take all this action towards learning about manifestation, learning about entrepreneurship, even though I failed business in school. Your intuition, once you decide who it is that you want to be and you let go of the how, your intuition, which is your inner guidance, will operate based off of the frequency that you're deciding. And you will get all these intuitive nudges to do these things that will get you your desired reality without even trying, without chasing, without taking action. Remember, action is the lowest vibrational state. So what I did was even though I was in my horse shed with no money, €0, I adopted the frequency of someone who had location freedom, had time freedom, who was living in their purpose, who was living their dream life, who was traveling the world. And at the time, my dream was to be an online PT. I didn't even have a PT cert, but I decided that this was what was happening, and I didn't negotiate with it. I had so much energy, emotional conviction towards this thing. My perception of self was that I was capable of doing this. I just decided that. I didn't care. And I also saw myself as someone who was a PT because I was so into fitness. I was posting about fitness content. I was showing up online every single day. I was being really visible. I was giving free value every single day for 2 years from my horse shed, before I held it in my hand. I just decided that that's who I was being, and I just decided it mentally, spiritually, physically. I had emotionally charged thoughts every single day. I meditated, I visualized, I practiced gratitude. Even when I didn't know the things that I know now about the laws of the universe, about levels of consciousness, about the quantum field, quantum physics, neuroscience. I know so much now about philosophy, the Hermetics, the Kabbalion. I didn't know any of that. I did not know any of that. I just knew and decided who it was that I wanted to be. And that's how there's certain people in this life that will make all the money in the world and they won't send one outreach message. They will end up in the best jobs that you could ever imagine without going to college. And it's because they know who they are. They have adopted the beliefs, the emotional conviction, the perception, the emotionally charged thoughts. They focused on all the reasons why it's going to work. They don't react to things. They respond. They expect the best. And that's what they get. That's how it comes into their physical. And so that's what I did. Every single day, I knew that that's who I was going to be, and I was that person before it came into my physical reality. So every single day, what I did during lockdown, during that time when I had no money, I was broke, mentally, spiritually, physically, I was all aligned. And then it all came into my reality in under 2 years. And the biggest part is detachment. You have to let go and let God. You have to surrender. You have to decide all of these things and then completely let it all go. Let it go. That's what my mom always says to me, let it go, Elsa. You just detach, and you have to have an unwavering trust, because you are acting as that person now. By law, it has to come into your reality. It will absolutely 1000%. It has never failed me, because it took me from my horse shed to building 2 six-figure businesses, standing on stage with Stephen Bartlett. I used it again. I used the law of assumption again. I assumed the thing to be true. I believed that I was a person that was capable of standing on stage to Stephen Bartlett with no marketing budget to pitch my podcast. I had emotional conviction towards it. I had a self-concept of myself that I am someone who does that. I am just someone, I just decided that that's what I do. I had emotionally charged thoughts. All my focus went on all the ways that it was going to work instead of all the ways that it wouldn't. I had every reason to give myself all the reasons it wouldn't work. I only had 50,000 downloads on my podcast. I only reached 100 episodes. I had no marketing budget. I don't have a big audience. I had 14,000 followers, less. Who was I to stand up on stage against him? That's what I could have said. That's what my old identity said. That's what the negative voice in my brain kept saying to keep me where I was. But I chose different. It's not that you're not going to have loads of self-doubt that comes up, or negative self-talk, or your old identity creeping up. You absolutely will, because anytime you step into a new frequency, your old identity is going to scream at you to try and keep you where you are, because it doesn't want to die. That's your ego. You have to ignore that. You have to let go of it. Not ignore it. You can observe it and you can feel how you feel, but you need to choose differently. And the moment you choose and decide differently, by law, it has to come into your hand. But you have to learn to detach, because as long as you want something, you will never have it. So if you keep chasing the thing and you keep running after the thing, you're creating a larger gap from where you are to where you want to go. But if you already have it and you're already being it, and you act, walk, talk, speak like it, and you take it off a pedestal, you take that thing off a pedestal because you're someone who already is capable of doing that, that's who you are, that's when it'll run to you.